Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Aldo Pellegrini, this is Guitar Skin, and today we're going to talk about preset leveling or the level of presets. I've received several questions about how to level sounds, meaning how to make the output levels of various presets or scenes uniform on the Quad Cortex. Actually, there are several different methods and you need to pay attention to the different types of presets, because adjusting some of the volume knobs isn't always that straightforward, or it might not give you the desired effect. So if this topic interests you too and you want to know how to adjust the signal levels at various points in the preset, this is the video for you. Let's get right into what we're talking about. So here I have a preset, one of the new ones I'm working on. It's very interesting with crunch, clean and distorted sounds. It sounds like this. As you can see in this preset, I have some splitters, but actually they all come back onto the same row. So on row 1, the signal comes in, the amp head processes it. Here I split the signal. One part goes to this cab, another part goes down, passes through the other cab, and always comes back onto row 1. From row 1, where do I go? I tell it, on this block, go to row 3. Here we are, we enter row 3. Another split, because on one side the signal goes to a delay, on the other side, the signal goes to a reverb, so in parallel, and then they both come back onto the same row. So from row 3, I have my multi-output block, which is what goes to the PA system, to your FRFR, your mixer, and so on. In this case, I have a single sound output source, which is this multi-output block. So if you look down here, it says volume. If you already have the preset set up correctly for the different scenes, so scene A and scene B have the right volume, scene C as well, so all the scenes are already properly leveled, but you want to adjust the overall volume of the preset because compared to your other presets, it's either too loud or too quiet, you can adjust it directly with this knob. By turning it here, let's say for example, I set it to 0 now. Okay, I will lower it to -4 dB, which means it will become very quiet. If I lower it even more, let's go to -8 dB. Now, if I change the scene, let's go to G. You see, it's still at -8 dB. -8, okay. So if you have a single output and it's not assigned to any specific scene, which we'll see how to do in a moment, you can adjust that knob, and by doing so, you've set the overall preset for your current configuration. Let's do another example together. Now, let's reset this to 0. Let's put it back to how my original preset was set up before. Let's say now I have two channels. You see, row 3 goes out to output 1 and 2, and row 4 goes out to output 1 and 2 as well. This means that both of these rows are being sent to both outputs simultaneously, which can be useful in certain scenarios. Perfect. In fact, listen, there's something interesting here, because now I've sent it to two different multi-outputs. Thanks to the scene assignment, which we'll look at now, I can manage not only the output from these blocks, but also the pan-pot, which is a very useful feature. So I can decide to send something to the right and something to the left. In this specific case, I go from row 1 to row 3, and row 3 receives the signal. Here I have a split, where I tell it, go ahead and send the signal, keep it going on line 3, and also send it to line 4. Why? Because on line 4 I might put, say, a nice reverb with a 6-second decay at 40% mix, and on the one above I assign a shorter reverb with a slightly higher mix. Up to this point, everything is, so to speak, normal. But with the multi-output, what do? Here, I'm receiving a signal that should go left and right more or less equally. But here, I can tell it, let's say this was the initial situation, it was centered, right-click, assign to scene. So for this specific scene, it will assign what I'm doing now, and I say, send everything left, 32%. Same thing, go 32 right on the other line. In this way, I will be able to have a stereophonic effect even with the reverbs in a more accentuated way, therefore having a shorter reverb on one side, and on the other hand, longer. Listen. The right side has a much longer reverb. Well, this beautiful environment is given thanks to this thing that is I can pampotter an effect more on one side than the other. In this specific case, however, I run into this problem. Okay, but if I now lower the volume, I might actually have a preset with this particular panned volume and with this, let's say, panned output. The other scene, on the other hand, might have a centered volume like this one, so this changes the entire structure of the preset and also the final effect. If I were to modify this volume here on the multi-output, my problem would be that with each preset I could have a different effect, because the moment I split the sound, the signal is no longer centered. If I lower the general volume on all the presets, I could have a different effect or volume from scene to scene, but above all I would have to do it twice because I'm using a double output send. So I can't just lower what's on row 3, but I also have to adjust what's on row 4. So I already start having to do more complicated operations that only create confusion. So what can I do if I have this type of signal routing? There's always this output, let's say row 3. As you can see here too, I have a volume and a pan, sobid. So if I have the pan centered, I can work on reducing or increasing the volume of everything that comes after this point, okay? So from here on, everything can be adjusted with this volume. So by lowering or raising this volume, what happens afterward doesn't matter to me, because whether it's panned or not, it doesn't make a difference, since I adjusted it before splitting the sound into other parts. So I'm lowering the volume, but the panning effect, the optimization of that sound, stays exactly the same as before, okay? This is another possibility for very simple presets, so without many splits or panned outputs. The most fundamental, most obvious thing would be for each scene to modify not so much the master of the amplifiers, but the output, because the master actually also affects the sound, since if I lower the master and raise the output to compensate, you can hear that it's less full-bodied, less rich in frequencies. If I go back to how it was before, the crunchiness increases a bit, and so do the harmonics. So, it might be that I go and modify all the outputs of my amplifiers in order to compensate based on the amp I'm using, obviously. You see, this one actually doesn't have an output because a master isn't provided, and modifying each individual amp becomes a bit tedious if you have many scenes in the same preset. So the quickest thing is to figure out what the existing volume is before splitting the sound into stereo rows or panned left and right. Another option that comes to mind is to possibly insert a volume block, always obviously in a row before it splits into multi-output. So now I have a fairly full row here, but I'll remove this, which is a noise gate, and I'll add a utility. Now if I remember correctly, here it is, volume. This can't boost, meaning it can't increase the volume, but it can reduce it. See, when it's off, it's at 10, but if I need to lower the volume, I can do it. If instead I need to raise it, generally, if I want to boost my whole preset, then I don't know, maybe I'll add this one a gain, which is basically the utility gain that's usually used for solos, or if I put it at the end, it acts as a volume effect and I can go both up and down, and it doesn't color the sound, so I can use it as a pure volume control. In summary, by carefully considering where and how you adjust the volume and pan settings within your signal chain, you can maintain the integrity of your sound while making the necessary adjustments for each scene or preset. This approach helps to avoid unnecessary complexity and ensures that your sound remains consistent and optimized throughout your performance or recording session. In this way, you can achieve a more reliable and predictable result, which is especially important when working with complex presets or during live performances, where consistency and clarity are absolutely essential. By taking the time to understand and manage these settings, you ensure that your sound is always at its best, regardless of the situation or the specific requirements of each scene. Okay, so basically we've seen how you can adjust the volumes of a preset overall. So in a generalized way, for the entire preset, by using the volumes available on the multi-output or on output 1 and 2, if you do not have a splitter or pan pots. Otherwise, you can use it on row 3. So it is enough, even if that is a single row that goes out and then to the following rows or directly into the amp blocks. But it becomes a bit more, let us say, laborious if you have many scenes. Alternatively, you can insert a gain block or a volume block in the chain, always before splitting into multi-output or pan-potted outputs. I hope this has been helpful to those of you who are looking for solutions to these issues. Leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I see that many people watch the channel but aren't subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps me to keep growing, so if you can, please subscribe. Alright, that's all for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.